What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of Legends of the Dugout. I am here with my friend Mike Pike. He is a full time collector, historian of baseball, and only deals at the National. So you've probably seen him on my videos a few times. So I'm going to bring him in and say hello. Hello, Mike, and welcome
Dave,
back to the channel.
Dave, it's always good to see you.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, I'm just so honored that you would think I was worthy of this kind of exposure because.
Well, you are a great in this hobby, and I do appreciate you, your friendship, and seeing everything that you purchase and sell and stuff, and your enthusiasm and joy just for it all. Like you just dig deep into things that I wouldn't even think of digging deep into. So,
Yeah, you would, and you do.
uh, sometimes.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're going to start off with card number one here, and you can talk about it, and then we'll go and see where this leads us.
Okay, let's do
All
it.
right. All right. So we're going to add card number one to the stage. Here we go.
Okay, well, first of all, and my partners, Tim Newcomb and Chris Bland and I, are in booth 1340. Or is it 39? It's either 1339 or 1340. I think it's 1339.
Okay.
And we have we're called Lutfa Vintage Cards, and among the three of us, we'll have lots of different things to show. Chris specializes in photographs and very high-end collectibles. Tim is one of the most eclectic collectors I know. He has all kinds of stuff. And lately I've been kind of focusing more on Negro League, black baseball. So you're going to see in a little bit, part of what I've been doing over the last, I guess it's the last year and a half, I've been selling most of my tobacco cards. For years, I collected tobacco cards. I collected primarily Southern minor leaguers. So I'm going to have a lot of tobacco cards at the National this year. But my true passion of late is Negro Leagues and black baseball. So you can put the slide back up of Willard Brown.
So your booth, if you were at Chicago last year, is it in the same location?
We're in exactly the same location, but instead of having two booths, we have one.
Okay. So
yeah, look
between
for
two floors, small area next to the nothing bundt cakes and a drink area.
Right.
Yep.
Right. We'll be next to the drink area.
All right. So
just look for a tall, bald guy, and that'll be me.
Card number one.
Well, card number one is one of my favorite players. This is Willard Brown, who I think a lot of people in your audience will know. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was a Negro Leaguer and played in the Negro Leagues until 1947. After Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby were signed by the Indians, Bill Veeck signed Willard Brown and Hank Thompson for the St. Louis Browns. And so Willard and Hank Thompson were players number 3 and 4 to move from the Negro Leagues to Major League Baseball. Willard didn't last very long with the Browns. He basically couldn't endure the racism he faced. And it wasn't just from the fans. A lot of it, most of it, came from his white teammates. And they quite literally drove him away. So that, just several weeks after he signed with the Browns, he asked for and was given his release. And he went back to the Negro Leagues. But he was a great, great player, quite obviously. I mean, he wouldn't be in the Baseball Hall of Fame if he weren't.
Okay.
He was an outfielder. This is his rookie card. This is a 1948-49 Toleteros, which is a Puerto Rican issue. And it is the first time during his career that he had a baseball card. And it was, a Puerto Rican issue because up to that point, there were no cards issued in America for Negro League players. If you made it to the majors, as he did, then you would get a card, but he didn't last very long in the major leagues. He, like a number of other people who didn't last long in the major leagues, as a result, never had an MLB baseball card. He appears on 3 different issues from Toleteros. Toleteros was a game that people would buy, and they would play this baseball game. And the cards, the cards were part of the game process. He appears on the 48-49, which is his rookie card, then 49-50 and 50-51. Toleteros also issued cards that were called in action, where they showed photographs taken from games of various players stealing a base, running out a hit, being greeted after a home run, that sort of thing. And Brown appears in a number of those as well. But this is his true rookie card, the 48-49 Toleteros. It's a very difficult card to find. Everybody wants, now that the Negro Leagues have been integrated into MLB's database, and people are now much more aware of the Negro Leagues, unlike 5 years ago, for example, and certainly 10 years ago. Now suddenly people want these players, and Willard Brown being a Hall of Famer, people want Willard Brown, just like they want Hilton Smith, who was another one who appears in this particular issue. So I'll have this at my booth. I was able to upgrade. This was my original Willard Brown. I was offered a slightly higher graded one. It's actually, I had PSA graded, and it's a PSA 3.5, which I'm keeping, but I'm going to have this in my case. So come around, take a look, and
you upgraded.
Yeah. And buy the card. You can have he was just a fabulous player. In fact, I think the next one you're going to show might have been the last card that was issued during his life.
All right, so I'm going to go to the next card.
Yeah. This is the 1972 issue, again Puerto Rican, that shows him later in life. They're not as expensive as the Toleteros. They're much more affordable. And when I say that, they're several hundred versus several thousand. And it's a great photo of Willard. It's a relatively inexpensive way, if you're interested in dipping your toes into the Negro Leagues and you want to get some Hall of Famers or big name players, this is the set you should look for, because it allows you to add not only a Hall of Famer but an important Negro Leaguer, and you're not going to break the bank or have to remortgage your house to do it.
Okay.
Once again, this was my original one. I now have an upgraded version of it. Okay. Well, that's the way it rolls, Dave.
Yeah.
Come on. When you get, it's funny, you're chuckling, and I get that. With some of these cards, I learned very early in my collecting that some of these cards are so scarce that if you're offered what looks like a really ugly version of a scarce card, buy it. Because you may not see that card again for years. And then all of a sudden, another version will come up, and it's better condition than the one you originally purchased or acquired. And then you buy that one, and then you sell the other one.
Yeah.
It helps underwrite the cost of the new one.
Yeah,
And
very,
I do that frequently, But if I see something that I know is scarce that I want, that's the most important thing. I'm buying these because I want them. I want them as part of my collection. Then I'll do that.
okay. All right. I'm going to go on to the.
So the next one.
The next one is this one.
Okay, now this takes us to kind of the beginning of, I call it de-accessioning. My daughter is a librarian. And when librarians get rid of books in a library, they call it de-accessioning.
Okay.
So I'm de-accessioning, if you will, my tobacco cards. This is the Kelly mascot card, which is a very famous card. It's highly sought by tobacco card collectors. It pictures a 7-year-old boy who was the son of the manager for the Goldsboro Giants in 1910. The Goldsboro Giants played in the Eastern Carolina League, and they were one of 6 teams in the Eastern Carolina League. They were the lowest rung of the minor leagues. They were Class D. So, it doesn't get much lower than that unless you're playing in a semi-pro league. The story, the story behind this is really interesting, and we probably don't have time for me to give you the whole story. But for some reason, the photographer who took the photographs of the Goldsboro Giants, and these photographs were taken before the season began. Most of the players on the team had their photograph taken. They started out with the photographer took a team photo, and then he would take the players and put them up with a background with the bleachers, the seats of the stadium in the background, and he would take individual photos. Those individual photos became either T210s, like this one, the red border, or they became T209, the second series, the black and white series. For some reason, I guess young Kelly's father convinced the photographer, take a picture of my son. He was the mascot. Now, what that means is that these early teams would have mascots, good luck charms, if you will. And they were usually either young kids or somewhat mentally challenged adults or young adults. In this case, young Kelly is the mascot because he's the son of the manager. The irony behind all of this is that literally weeks after this photograph was taken, and I have documentation for this because I acquired an archive of letters written by one of the team members on the 1910 Goldsboro Giants, a man by the name of Fred Stair, Stoehr. And they're letters that were written to his very young wife back in Altoona, PA. And he wrote regularly. In one of the letters he writes to her, and I can remember the date clearly, it's June the 2nd, 1910. Now keep in mind that I think their season began on May 21st, something like that, of 1910. So we're talking about, about 3 weeks later. He mentions 2 things in the letter that are really interesting. One is management fired Kelly that day. And they fired him because the team got off to a terrible start. Goldsboro's arch rival was the Wilson team, because Wilson and Goldsboro in North Carolina are just a few miles apart. And they were intense rivals. Goldsboro had a pretty good team in 1909. They were expected to be a really strong team in 1910. Fred Stair was going to be their kind of ace. And they came out of the chute just horribly. Wilson, whose nickname was the Tobacconists, because Wilson, North Carolina, is where some of the finest leaf is grown, tobacco leaf. They lost their first 3 games to Wilson, and people went nuts in Goldsboro. And, Kelly's father became the sacrificial lamb, and they fired him.
Okay.
Young Kelly, though, appears on 2 cards. One is this one, the T210, and he also appears on a postcard, a real photo postcard, which is exceedingly rare, which I also have in my collection. But it's really rare. This card has become, how Shag Shaughnessy in the T206 is a card that everybody wants to have because he's got that hair, this is the same thing with this card. And this is, I think, the highest graded version of the Kelly mascot. There aren't very many of them, and the reason is, I think, pretty obvious. You open a pack of Old Mill cigarettes, you pull out your card, and you got this kid, and you go, "Huh? I don't want this," and you pitch it, and hope to get a real player in the next pack that you buy. So this is part of my de-accessioning of my tobacco collection.
Okay.
This is going to be in my booth.
All right. Go on to the next one here.
Okay, this is Morris. He appears in Series 3. This is the only horizontal card in T210. And if you know the T210 series, there are 8 series total, 1 through 8. The most difficult series in the set are 6, 7, and 8. 8 is really difficult. This is Series 3, which has some interesting cards in it. This one is highly collectible because it's the only horizontal. Series 3 is also the series that has the orange borders. Have you heard about those?
Yep.
Yeah. The border, the red border here, is an orange tint, which was created, I'm almost certain, by the fact that when they printed the cards, they didn't use the right mixture for the red, and it turned out orange instead. But it's one of those anomalies, and the orange borders are highly collectible. This one, as I said, attracts collectors because it's the only horizontal. It too will be in my case.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Next photo up is a double.
Okay, well, this is a really, really interesting situation. This is Johnny Britton, who was the third baseman. He played in the Negro Leagues. He played for the Birmingham Black Barons. He played for the Indianapolis Clowns. He played most. I think he played 4 seasons with the Barons. Very good player, good hitter, good fielder. All those sorts of things. He played obviously in the Puerto Rican League in the winter. This is his 4950. Yeah. This is his 4950 Toleteros card. He had a 4849 Toleteros, which I have in my collection. And that's his official rookie card. So just from the standpoint of being a Negro Leaguer and having a card in the Toleteros series, he's highly collectible. But what makes Johnny Britton really unique is the fact that he and his teammate, Jimmy Newberry, who was a pitcher. He and Jimmy Newberry were loaned to the Hankyu team in Japan in 1952. And I'm sorry, Hanku is the way you pronounce it. In 1952, they went to Japan and they became the first African American players to play in Japan. And for that reason, both Johnny Britton and Jimmy Newberry have even more interest added to their cards. And that interest is amplified by the fact of the card on the right, which is his Japanese card. So he goes to Japan. He and Newberry go to Japan, and not only do they have cards that were produced when they played in the Puerto Rican League, the Winter League. Now they're active players in Japan, and they get real cards issued for them in real time. Unlike the U.S., where if they,
Yep.
They didn't have any cards, but in Japan they did. And so the card on the right, again, that's my dupe. I recently slightly upgraded it because these cards are kind of hard to find, as you can imagine. But it's just such an interesting story, and that's what's so fascinating, I think, about the Negro Leagues and about African American players. The stories behind their careers, which on one level are so unfair and so sad, but on another level are really fascinating because these guys, all they wanted to do was play baseball. They loved baseball and they wanted to play the game, and they were good players. Johnny Britton goes to Japan. He played there 2 years, 52 and 53. He only played, I think, in 60-some games in 52, but 53 he had a full season. He hit something like, I don't know, that year I think he hit right under 280, had a bunch of home runs. He had something like 60-some ribbies. He was a solid player. But, when he comes back to the States, he can't play in Major League Baseball because by that time he's too old. And his skills are beginning to diminish, but he loved the game so much he'd play anywhere.
Okay.
As long as he could play. So I think, having his Japanese card, and I have Jimmy Newberry's Japanese card, one of them. I just think it's so interesting. It's really cool. And here's another interesting fact. Both Larry Doby, and you may already know this, but one of the interesting factoids about Larry Doby and Don Newcomb is that they end their playing careers in Japan. In 1972. They have Japanese cards issued for them, and they are really hard to find.
Okay.
And because Doby's a Hall of Famer,
Yep.
they're pretty expensive.
Okay. So if anybody is watching this and looking at these cards, you should buy both of them so you have them.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, there's a major Japanese dealer by the name of Robert Clevens, Klevens. I'm going to give Robert a plug here. Robert is a student of Japanese baseball. I bought this card from Robert. He may be the only one in the room who has another copy of this card.
Okay.
But, he may not have any in his current stock. I would be willing to bet that this card will be the only one in the room.
I mean, it's a beautiful looking card.
Oh, it is. I mean, and in person, it's even better looking.
Well, I hope I get to see it before you sell it. So.
Well, I do too, Dave.
So I'll probably head straight over to your booth on Wednesday when I walk in. So I can
do it.
So I can see it and get pictures of me holding it. So
there you go.
Yeah. But we're going to move on to the next group of cards here.
Okay. Well, I just threw these up because these are four Negro Leaguers who had Tolateros cards. Let's see, it's in the top in the top left. It's Totelo Vargas, who was a great Dominican player,
Okay.
played in the Negro Leagues, and played in Puerto Rico. Top right is Luke Perry, who's one of my favorite players. Luke Perry was a prodigious hitter. Oh, I'm sorry, Luke Easter. I said Luke Perry. No. I'm sorry. That's Alonzo Perry. Why did I conflate the two? Alonzo Perry was one of the great players, and also had off the field problems with his recreational liquids and his propensity for women. But he was a great player. And he too played everywhere. In fact, he played a lot longer than a lot of these other players who had retired, because he just had this insatiable love of the game, or for the game rather. On the bottom is Luke Easter, or his real name is Lucius, but he went by Luke. Luke Easter played for the Homestead Grays for 2 years in, I think, 48 and 49. But he also played in 1949 in the Puerto Rican League. In fact, pretty certain he played in the Puerto Rican League in 48 too. That's his rookie card. But another great player. Luke Easter, unlike Vargas and Alonzo Perry, did sign with the Cleveland Indians, and he had a 5-year career. When he signed with them, he was already something like, I think, 30 or 31, something like that. I can't remember his exact age. When he played for 5 years, you can find his Major League Baseball card. It's not that difficult. But one of the things that I find fascinating, if you're looking for an interesting collecting niche, and you're involved in, you're interested in Negro League players, one of the things that I do is look for an example of the player's Negro League card, if there is one, and then an example of his MLB rookie card. The rookie cards are fairly easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
The Negro League cards are another story. And again, this is a duplicate. This was my original Luke Easter, and I've upgraded that.
Yeah, I got Luke Easter's rookie.
Oh, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was a great player, just a great player. And then the one next to Luke Easter is John Ford Smith. A really good pitcher who also played. Actually, no, he was signed. He never really played in the major leagues. He and Monty Irvin were signed together in 1949.
Okay.
But only Irvin went on to play. Luke Easter never made it out of the minor leagues.
Okay.
But, I said Luke Easter. John Ford Smith never made it out of the minor leagues.
Okay.
But again, another Negro League player, and another example of, a representation of that player.
Okay.
So many of the Negro League players, as I've mentioned to you before, only have cards that are issued in countries other than the U.S.
Okay. So these next group of cards, the next 3 photos, I should say, or 4, are
T206s.
And these are the low end, like budget worthy. I'm just playing, like, but no, they're beautiful cards though.
Yeah, I have. I started out collecting T206s. That was, I don't know, 20 some years ago, and I actually put together 4 different sets of T206. And the thing that really attracted me to T206 were the Southern League cards, because these are minor league players. And as I've said to you before, and I'll repeat it, I've always been attracted to outlier type things, from a collecting perspective and from a research perspective, I might add. So Southern Leaguers, the 48 card set of T206 Southern Leaguers, appealed to me strongly. When I sold my last T206 set, which consisted of all the high grade versions I'd put together, I then promptly put together another 48 card subset of the Southern Leaguers. And I've decided now that, it's time to get rid of that subset. So I'm going to have these cards with me in my booth as well.
Okay.
The highest graded one I have is the one on the left, Jimmy Lafitte. That's a PSA 7. It's slightly miscut, but it's still a PSA 7. The one on the right, I've already alluded to. That's Shag Shaughnessy. He's just got that great hairdo, that collar flipped up, and everybody who collects T206 has to have a Shag Shaughnessy in his or her collection. So this will be in my booth, but also these are old mill backs. All of the Southern Leaguers that I'll have available for sale, with the exception of one, which I'll point out in a moment, are all old mill backs. As you know, there were 4 backs, three main backs in the Southern Leagues. One is Piedmont, the other one is Old Mill, and the really difficult one is Hindu. Old Mill has a slightly higher collecting value than the Piedmont, which is pretty common. And then there's a 4th back, and the Old Mill backs. I can just hold one up here so you can see it, but they're black print. But there's the what's that?
Hold it up again. So it's okay.
But there are some versions of the Old Mill back that are brown, and again, I think they're a printing error, but they're extremely scarce, and they command a pretty high price. I always was attracted to the Old Mill because, Old Mill cigarettes made the T209s, or I'm sorry, the T210s. It's pretty much a Southern cigarette, so I was attracted to those, and that's what I put together for the subset. This subset consists. I'd say that this subset is probably a mid-grade. I've got a couple. I've got Lafitte at a PSA 7. I think I've got a couple of 1.5s. The majority of them are 3s, 4s, and 5s. I'm going to put the set out initially for sale as a set, but if nobody's interested in buying the set, then I'll start selling them individually.
Okay.
So they'll be available too. And I think the next slide shows a couple more of them. Yeah. In the upper left there, that's the only non-Old Mill back in the group. That's Charlie Fritz. He's got a Piedmont back, and the Piedmont backs were pretty common. But the guy next to him is Dutch Revell, and he's a player that was a pretty good player, and a lot of people really value him in terms of their collecting interests. Ed Greminger is on the bottom there. Dutch Revell is a PSA 4. Ed Greminger, who played for Montgomery, he's a PSA 4 also. But again, they're all Old Mill backs.
Okay.
So all these cards will be available in my booth at booth 1340. But then I also decided, so you can see now with the next set of slides, You can see where I'm headed. I am literally getting rid of all my tobacco cards. Now, what makes these there's good old Shag Shaughnessy up again. He's in a 1. And he's next to Bach Hooker. He's in a 1. And then underneath them is Roy Elam. He's in a 1.5. But what makes these cards unique, if you show the next slide, is the fact that they're Hindu backs. In the T206 set, and specifically within the Southern League subset, which is 48 cards, there are 34 cards that have a Hindu back. And I was fascinated by that because they're difficult cards, they're special cards, and I was just fascinated by that fact. So I thought, well, I'm going to try and collect all 34. I stopped at 23.
Okay. I'm trying to remember, was it Cleveland or last year that these cards walked up to your table?
No.
No? Because I remember.
No Hindus walked up to the table.
Okay. I thought you had some Hindus walk up to your table at one of the shows.
No.
Okay.
No, not Hindus, or not Southern League Hindus.
Okay.
They're just, very difficult to find. And when you find them, that's why I pointed out, you've got 2 1s and a 1.5. You don't find them in very good condition, for a variety of reasons. But if you find anything above a 2 or a 2.5 or a 3 and on up, you're going to pay a lot of money. They're that scarce.
Oh.
The majority of mine are low grade, and again, I just didn't care. If I found one, I bought it if I could afford it, and hope that maybe someday I'd be able to upgrade it. In fact, I think the highest graded card I have is an old SGC 35, which is a 2.5.
Okay.
I'd like to sell these as a group. I'd like to sell all 23 as a group. But again, if they don't, they'll have stickers on the back too, and they'll be available for sale.
Okay.
They're just really cool cards. I just love those Hindu backs. And then I guess the last thing I sent to you.
Well, I'm going to bring up picture 11 here.
Oh, right. I forgot about this.
Well, yeah, we got this one more, and then the big.
Right. The big one, which, we're building the excitement here as we move toward the big one. This is a Cuban set that was issued during the 1949-50 Winter League in Cuba. This is a premium, and you can see if you cut to me, they're pretty big.
Okay.
And this is the uncut version. The one facing the camera, I guess, on the right, of the viewer's right, that's been trimmed. The one on the left is not trimmed. That's the full version. These were issued by a newspaper in Cuba called Alerta, and they were issued as a supplement. There are 70 cards, many of which are Negro Leaguers. This one is Ray Dandridge. He's the only Hall of Famer in the 70 card set. I think the Negro Leaguers number something like 19 or 20, and then there are a bunch of players who later appeared or who played in Major League Baseball who were coming to Cuba in the winter to continue playing ball. I'm going to have a near set available at the show of these cards, including the trim version here of Dandridge. Now, if you could go to the next slide, then we'll cut back to Dandridge.
Okay. Okay, granted.
Okay, so at the bottom, you'll see that there's this guy, this photograph of this guy that says Antonio Alcalde. I think that's the way it's pronounced. Now, in Spanish, that translates to Antonio for mayor. Alcalde is mayor. These premiums were issued with this ad at the bottom as an attempt to promote Antonio for mayor, I think of Habana. His real name, his name was Prio, Antonio Prio. But there, people in Cuba at the time would know this, so they just put Antonio for mayor. What a number of people did, if you go back to the previous slide, and by the way, I'll get back to that. What a number of people did was cut Antonio out. I don't want to see Antonio's photo. I want to see the baseball player. The heck with that Antonio guy. He's some politician. And by the way, he lost in the election, despite the fact that there were, hundreds of these things, or thousands of these premiums printed. He lost. But they become highly, highly collectible because, again, they're a Cuban issue and they're hard to find. And there are all kinds of potential condition problems with them because of the climate, in Cuba. This is Dandridge. I have a full sheet version of Dandridge in my collection, but this is the trim version. So if you go to the next slide of Pearson, of Len Pearson, this is what the full version looks like. And by the way, I should point out too that each of the ball clubs represented is printed in that ball club's color. Habana was red. So you see it printed in red.
Red, and this one's in like orange and yellow. Yeah.
Yeah, Marianao was their color. I have 65 of the 70 in the set, including Dandridge. And then I have 13 additional cards, most of which are, the full size version. So what I'm going to do is put this in my booth and offer them as a set, as a full set, because it's a rare opportunity to pick up a full set, or a near full set, I should say.
Okay.
As well as many of these obscure Negro League players like Lennox Pearson here, or Len Pearson. They're just tough to find. And if you're a collector and you're interested in the Negro Leagues, and specifically Cuban cards, you will only have to find 5 more cards and you'll have a complete set. So I hope somebody will be interested in those cards. And then we get to the last one.
All right, the last one.
It's not the last one that's going to be in my case, but pardon me.
The big one.
The big one. This is a photograph, and if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you see this round-faced guy who looks a lot like Josh Gibson, and by golly, it is. It's none other than Josh Gibson himself. This photograph was taken in November of 1944, and we know that by looking at the calendar. You can't see it here, but in the printed version, it's clear that it's November 1944. This photograph was taken by a very famous Pittsburgh African-American photographer, a guy named Charles Harris. And Charles Harris was a short guy, and his nickname was Teeny. So he goes by Teeny Harris. And anybody who knows anything about African-American photography, particularly in the 30s and 40s, knows Teeny Harris. And specifically, if you know Pittsburgh, because he was a Pittsburgh resident. He was the photographer for the Pittsburgh Herald, which was the black newspaper. This photograph is taken in a very famous restaurant, or it was a hotel grill, hotel/grill, called the Harris. Called the Harris. And the guy who owned it is the guy in the middle there, the bald guy looking down at the young woman. That's Pop Harris. No relation to Teenie Harris. But he owned the establishment. African American residents would come to Pop Harris's place because it was like a gathering place. It was an upscale place. And all kinds of people would show up there, including Josh Gibson. So Teeny's there one night. There are a bunch of other people. By the way, the guy in the uniform is Pop Harris's son. I forget his first name, but he's engaged to the woman that Pop is kind of looking at, and she's smiling. In walks Josh Gibson, and he ends up in this photograph. But it was not unusual. It would be a place that Josh Gibson would go to, after a game, in the off season, during the season. It would be a place he would frequent. Now the the sad part of this is that not too many, a little more than 2 years later, in 1947, Josh Gibson would be dead. And he would not, he would be denied the opportunity to play in Major League Baseball. He was seriously ill. He had addiction problems. He died of brain tumors, which he refused to have treated because he didn't want to stop playing. But, he's Josh Gibson. I think this is a really interesting photograph because it shows him not in a baseball uniform, not in a baseball setting, but it shows him in kind of an everyday setting. It's Josh Gibson, citizen. In the bottom left there is one of Teeny's little, excuse me, one of Teeny's little notations. And if I could show you the back, I don't have the photograph in front of me, but if I could show you the back, you would see it's stamped Harris Studio. So and I should mention too. Well, first of all, Teenie Harris played with an early Homestead Grays team, but he wasn't good enough to make it to the major leagues of Negro League Baseball. He was also known as One Shot Harris because he would take one photograph and that would be it. He wouldn't pose people. He tried to get, when his eye caught something, he tried to, take that photograph and snap. I'm certain Pop Harris would prefer if his head were leaning up and his bald pate were not so prominent, but too bad. That's what Teenie took. There's a huge archive of Teenie Harris's photographs at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. And if you go to their website, if you go to their library archives, you'll see the Charles Harris collection. And if you just breeze through the collection, you'll see this photograph. They were reproduced years later. It's a kind of sordid story, and I won't bore you with the details, but this is a Type 1 photograph. And I acquired it back in March. I'm kind of thinking of just putting it in the booth so people can see it. It's not for sale. It's the only Josh Gibson item I own. But I suppose if somebody came along and made an insane offer,
Yeah.
I would sell it, but it'd have to be a pretty insane offer. If somebody wants to trade me his Toleteros, Josh Gibson's Toleteros, for this photo, I'll do it.
There you heard it, folks. Not for
You
sale.
heard it. You heard it here first on Dave's show. The news is out.
The news is out.
So that gives you an idea of what I'm bringing to the show. I'm going to have a lot. I'll have a lot of Negro League cards. As I said, I'm going to have a lot of my T206s that remain. I used to collect American Beauty backs. I thought they were just really fascinating backs. And when I got rid of those backs, I kept one of each of the three backs. The 350 frame, the 350 no frame, and the 460. It's time to get rid of those. They'll be in my case too.
Okay.
I started collecting T206s when my friend Tim Newcomb said, "You're from Chicago. Why don't you put together a subset of the Cubs?" And my team was the Cubs, and that's how I started out. So after I sold my last set, I decided, well, maybe I'll put that old subset back together again. But I'd really walked away from T206s, so I'll have a few of those with me too.
Okay.
Including some of the Hall of Famers, but not a Lundgren. He's gotten out of
Okay.
sight. So there you have it. And then, as I said, lots of Negro League. I'll have some interesting stuff.
Okay. And you have something for everybody.
Yeah, I'm also going to have some 19th century things. I mean, there will be some N172s.
Okay.
But there's a very famous series of 4 cards, trade cards, 19th century trade cards, that depict African Americans. And I have a complete set of that. I'm going to bring that with me.
Okay.
Just things like that, just little odds and ends.
Odds and ends.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, let's see. Today's the 1st of July.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
I know. So I guess I'll be seeing you, well, hopefully on the 28th, because I'll get there on the 28th. If not the 28th, then definitely the 29th on Wednesday.
Yeah.
When the show opens, I'll see you in
Yeah.
person and shake your hand proudly.
Well, yeah. Okay. You're very kind, Dave. You're a formal Southerner.
Well, I'm not a true Southerner, but
yeah,
I feel like I've been down here long enough.
Yeah, you have.
And
So come on by.
Yes.
I'm not the only person who will have interesting things for sale in our booth. I guarantee you, Chris and Tim will have interesting things as well. As people have said when they come up to our booth, this is like walking into a museum. You've got all this old, interesting stuff. And all of us know the stories behind it. So that's kind of interesting too.
All right. So.
Oh, no, one other thing I should mention. A lot of the Negro League players who didn't make it to MLB, and some who did, continued playing on regional teams. Like the old Seattle Mariners were a minor league team. There were regional issues for those teams. There's a regional issue called Seattle Popcorn, issued by this owner called Gills, G-I-L-S, G-I-L apostrophe S. I'll have some regional issues with me too. They're really and kind of fun. And I should have scanned it and sent it to you. I'm going to have one of Larry Rains's cards. Larry Rains was the first guy to play in the Negro Leagues, the minor leagues, the major leagues, and Japan. The very first one. Two of the other people who did that, Larry Dobian and Don Newcomb.
Very interesting.
It is. I mean, it's one of those trivia questions. You go to a baseball gathering and you just, throw, I got a piece of trivia. Who's the first guy who played in the Negro Leagues, minor leagues, major leagues in Japan? Larry Raines. And I'll have one of his cards in the booth too.
Okay.
It's again, it's just a way to pick up a little interesting piece
Yeah.
of baseball history.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
I'll look forward to seeing that card.
yeah, come on by.
Definitely will. But we're almost here for an hour and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Time flies when you're having fun, Dave.
exactly. So for everybody, go see Mike. Check out his booth. Great stuff. You won't regret. If you're just looking at it, not buying, just go by, say hello, bring snacks. You know.
Yeah, bring food.
Bring food, water.
Mike always responds to food.
So just go by and say hello. Take a look. If you find something you want it, make a deal. You know,
it'll be yours.
You will not be disappointed in stopping at his booth. So,
well, thank you, Dave. You're very kind.
I'll see you soon. I'll see you all at the next game. Until then, have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.